So Thursday, 5th of September, and in this evening's show, we react to the seismic news that Steve Bruce, yes, Steve Bruce, was appointed the new Blackpool manager of new Blackpool Football Club manager on Tuesday evening. What it could mean for the style of football, potential success for the season, and all the panel are going to give their reactions to this news. I'm John Aspinall, and this is Seaside's podcast, Extra Time Show. Strewth, it's Steve Bruce. Tradition. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Seaside's podcast on a Thursday. Yes, I know, everybody. The music still isn't working. I will sort that out in post, but yeah, there's been other things been higher on my priority list at the moment. I've been on a team building day with work today, building rafts, going on canoes, etc. So I'm doing a lot funner thing now doing this. Joining us on the studio are Tim, Tom, and making his debut this evening is Brad Motherwell. Brad, a patron of the group for quite some time. Thanks much for that, Brad. And you've met myself and Tim quite a few times at away games, most notably in the Black Country, and it's always been on the end of a terrible result and performance. So yeah, we've got nice positive memories of you in person meetings.
Yes, unfortunately, every time we seem to be meeting each other, the matches have not really been to scratch, to say the least. Mind you, though, the last time we saw Tim, it was against Norwich, when it was our last game of the season in the Championship, and that was a good away game. I'm not going to lie.
It certainly was.
In your full Michael Portillo attire at Norwich away, Tim. Very, very Tim.
We
away game.
We cruised in from the Broads via a few hostelries, so and had some canopies on the top deck before going to the game. So yeah, I suppose so. I'd take that one on the chin, John.
Welcome, Tom. Thanks for joining us in a very retro Lotto Telewest. Yeah, is that? I'm just trying to work it out. Yes, it is.
You are correct. This was when I first started going. It was my dad. He's passed it down to me now, so thought I'd put it on for today to celebrate the heritage of Blackpool FC while we talk about Steve Bruce.
Right, we've got a lot to get through. We've got reactions from all the panelists. Just before we start, I just wanted to say big up to Eddie for getting in the school team today. He's just started year 7 and he's got into the school team on the trial.
Go on, Eddie.
Oh, go on, Eddie. Well done. Very proud father here. So I said I'd give him a shout out. I know he's watching. So well done, Eddie.
It's a little bit like our Blackpool managers, isn't it? He's got in the school team despite you rather than because of you.
He's got a very good coach, Tim. That's all I could say. Limited ability, but hard work and an expert eye overseeing development has got him to where he is today. So, right, boys, before we play the videos, the reaction videos, tell us where you were and what your reaction was when the news came through, which was obviously directly after the Crewe game. Great performance for him when Richard Keough's last game, unfortunately, in charge. So, Tim, your thoughts first on the news that Steve Bruce was appointed.
Well, I had it. There was obviously some talk about there being an announcement during the day, and then the sort of feedback was that they've run out of time. And I think a lot of people, there was talk of Beale, wasn't there? Possibly being appointed, and Wild was still in the play, but nobody in the wildest minds thought that Steve Bruce was one of the ones being considered. Although I think it was mentioned on the podcast group actually that somebody had seen him and Julian Winter in Lytham St Anne's in the afternoon. So, but nobody, even then, I don't think anybody put 2 and 2 together and got to 4. Anyway, I was sat at home. I forgot where I'd been on Tuesday night actually. I think I'd been out for a bit of a walk, and I come back. And I actually got told by our friendly Nobber, who sent me this WhatsApp message through with the link from from X. And I just, as I think as probably most people who first saw that image thought it somebody been messing around with the computer and it was a spoof. So my immediate reaction was, that's a spoof. It looks a good one. So Tom Harrison had the dubious honour of telling me, and I think the three what the F words got used, and probably I was not the only one to come out with that expletive.
Tom, over to you. Where were you?
Yeah, very similar.
What do you think?
I remember picking up my phone, and it was it during the game, the Crewe game, or just after? I seem to remember. So I wasn't really thinking about the manager. Thought I saw a few people in the podcast group saying, "I told you, I can't believe it. I'd rather have Fiona Bruce." And I thought, oh yeah, we're still talking about that Steve Bruce rumor that we'd heard. And then it took about 5 minutes, and then I looked on Twitter and saw it was actually happening, which we all must have fallen back in our chairs because, like you say, it was not a name that was mentioned, not someone I ever imagined to be at Blackpool Football Club. Not really managed in League One in my time watching football. He's always been in the Premier League or the Championship and at some pretty big clubs down the years. So yeah, it's been quite surreal seeing him in the kit at Squires Gate running around with his assistant, and it's all very strange. It like a couple of others have said in offline as well. It's similar to Mick McCarthy sort of vibes because you just don't expect these not historic, that's the wrong word, but managers that we've been watching down the years on TV and not really come across directly too much actually managing Blackpool, which is strange. I don't think would ever have happened under the Oystons. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't think Steve Bruce would have ever come near us under the Oystons, and probably it would have been Keough on a 6-month rolling contract. So I think it is interesting caliber, but yeah, just pure shock and pure been surreal for the last few days.
Brad, over to you. Your thoughts when this bombshell dropped, this Brucey bombshell?
Believe it or not, I was working late, so I was already trying to watch the game whilst working, and I managed to get some of the game. And obviously, I was leaving the dealership where I work, and I've just got a ping on my phone. And then went on Facebook and saw the appointment of Steve Bruce, I literally stunned for about 4 or 5 seconds and thought, what the hell? I was like, I just had the Mick McCarthy vibes. That's all I had. I was like, yeah, he's got a good CV, but we've been there before as well, and the track record doesn't really speak quite highly from what Simon Sadler seems to have done. So, yeah, I'm not feeling very optimistic, and I'm certainly on the fence on this one.
Steve Bruce has been doing a bit of research. He's had 2 promotions, 2 at Birmingham, 2 at Hull, all to the Premier League. He's had 1 relegation at Birmingham, 1 relegation at Hull City. All the action seems to have been there. Birmingham and Hull. He has had a extensive list of clubs. We'll go to chat about those shortly. But the other panelists, who unfortunately can't make it this evening, have also sent their reactions through. So we'll play each one at a time and we'll give our thoughts on what we've just listened to. First up in the chair is Nick. Take it away, Nick.
Good morning or evening, everybody, as it will be by the time you're listening to this. Just thought I'd give you my thoughts on what's happened in the last few days at Blackpool Football Club. Obviously on Tuesday, initially I was sat there a little bit in disbelief and shock at what I'd seen. Thought, am I in a parallel universe? Is there a glitch in the Matrix? CJ Hamilton's just scored a header. And I thought that would be the shock of the night. But Blackpool FC obviously had other news, and the game finished, my phone was pinging, messages were coming through all about the game, and one came through like a bit of a picture, and I was like, oh, what's that? I thought, oh, someone's done one of those funny memes and mocked up Steve Bruce as our manager, and you click on it. I know it's on Twitter, and for a minute you think it's from Blackpool Football Club. And it was from Blackpool Football Club. And Steve Bruce was our manager. And I was kind of reading it, but you know when you watch something in the news and it's kind of that shocking, you're not really taking it in or can't compute it. It was a bit like that for a few seconds, because, let's be honest, it's not a name that had appeared anywhere on any social media that I'd seen, and certainly not on any lists of potential managers. So it was a complete shock, and there was a little bit of Mick McCarthy appointment vibes, I have to say, for a minute or two, while you're kind of taking it all and thinking about what it might mean. Obviously, you look at the plus points, the pros and the cons, should I say. Vastly experienced, 1,000 games, or over 1,000 games as a player, and a similar number as a manager. I was pleased that it mentioned that Dobby and Keough were being involved. I think we've all enjoyed the attacking football in the short time that Uncle Richard has been in charge, should I say. It will be interesting to see how much input they actually have, and I hope it's not just a bit of a tick box exercise, and that they are listened to, because I think both of them, although they've only been in charge of first team games for a handful of them, on both occasions it was really enjoyable football. So I hope we keep that DNA. Steve Bruce, it's a mixed CV. It tends to be when you've managed as many games as he has. And let's be honest, if it was all great, he probably wouldn't be Blackpool manager in League One. I think we have to sort of accept that. Pep and Klopp aren't coming, are they? So I think there's positives, the experience. I hope that it isn't just a case of, we get industrial football and that we do still try and play attacking football. He mentioned in his interview that he likes what he's seen and it just needs a few tweaks, and I hope it is a few tweaks. I'll get a Partridge quote in. I'm hoping it's evolution, not revolution. I don't think it needs a massive overhaul. I think the players are enjoying themselves. We can really see that. Yes, we need to tighten up at the back. And another entertaining draw with Wycombe, but ultimately we want to try and not concede as many as we're scoring and start making our way up the table. And I think we've got a squad capable of doing that, and I don't want that, albeit early days good work, to be undone. I wonder as well, he's in the twilight of his career. Is the passion and the desire and the drive still there? Perhaps it will be with him taking, he's had a couple of years out, hasn't he? He said particularly in the last year he's really missed it, and he's itching to get back into it. So hopefully there is that enthusiasm and drive there, and he will develop the coaches, and not just the players. The proof will be in the pudding, though, and we will see what comes. It was a complete left field appointment. We talk about vision and long-term plans and strategies, and then Steve Bruce gets appointed, and you think, how does that fit in? Turns out he knows David Down. So is it just down to that? I don't know. Maybe I'm being cynical there. But I sort of like it. I wasn't like completely, oh my God, I'm totally against it. I think social media, which, you do get extreme views on there. The WhatsApp group, I think it was more people were, what the hell's that about, than actually I think that's going to be all right, and only time will tell. I do feel a bit, I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's a bit, to give it an analogy again, I think it's a bit like you're on the Great British Bake Off. You've got all the ingredients for a cake. You put it in the oven, and it comes out, and who's the guy who's in charge of it all? Paul Hollywood. He takes a bite of it, dramatic pause, and you're thinking, oh shit. And he says, that's fantastic. That's really good. Mary Berry's smiling, she's happy, and you win Baker of the Day or whatever it is. Equally, the cake could come out and it's on fire, and you are removed from the competition with immediate effect. I feel a bit like that with this managerial appointment. I think it's either going to go really well or it's going to be a bit of a disaster. It probably won't be dull, because we don't really do that, although the football was a bit dull last season. But in terms of managerial appointments, It certainly raises eyebrows, as I'm sure it did for Uncle Richard when he heard. So we'll see. It's a cliche to say we've got to back the manager. We do. You know, the North Stand rocking is a fantastic place. Hopefully we play the attacking football that will mean that happens, and it's a big success. So Steve Bruce's Tangerine Army, and Steve Agnew's Tangerine Army, and Steve Dobby's Tangerine Army, and Steve Banks's Tangerine Army. Up the Steves.
I didn't really know. I never noticed that until Nick's pointed it out. Quality segment there, Nick. Lovely analogies. Anyone got any comments on what the great points that Nick's put forward there?
Yeah, I think and it's a point that's been made by Bradley as well, and it's the comparison with the Mick McCarthy appointment. And I had an interesting conversation with Luca from Notriani's today. I was out on my lunchtime stroll.
Having a very chilled time with him waiting.
Yes, very good, John. Didn't have an ice cream. I'm on a health kick, so. But he was saying, look, you know, when you look at it, I think we've been scarred by McCarthy as a fan base. I think it was that bad that the automatic thought is that's coming again, and it doesn't. You know, it can't be that bad, can it?
It can. It can.
But yeah, so Matt, so I think that's something we've got to park McCarthy and look at Steve Bruce on his on his own CV and his own merits, and I think there has been some failures along with the successes, but we've got to bear in mind that quite often he was brought in as a firefighter when things have gone incredibly wrong under other managers, and sometimes whatever you think you can do and what you hope to do, it doesn't work. So I think some of those relegations that might have appeared on his CV may be deeper rooted problems than Steve Bruce. So, but you know, if you speak to a West Brom fan or a Newcastle fan, in particular, they don't have a great deal of kind words to say about him. But then if you speak to Hull City fans, and if you speak to Wigan fans, and if you speak to, I think, Huddersfield fans, they're probably slightly more positive about the experience of having him involved. So I think looking back at Nick's analogy, you know, it is. I think this is going to go spectacularly well or spectacularly wrong, and I haven't quite made my mind up which yet. But it's not going to be boring, and that's what we didn't want, and what we had last season. And, you know, we've seen already that we've got the players. You know, I think Keough's pushed us to the top of the scoring charts in a matter of a few games. I think we're top scorers in the league. What we now need to do is just to bring a little bit of discipline at the back, a little bit of know-how. And if there's one player who made the best of his attributes as a defender, it's Steve Bruce. And I don't think you could have a better mentor as a defensive player as regards how to get it right, because he wasn't a brilliant footballer. But I tell you what, a bit like Kevin Keegan as a forward, he made everything count for him, and he ended up with a very, very trophy-laden career as a player, and he was instrumental in that. So I just hope he doesn't take away the joy and the fun that we've had over these last 3 or 4 games of seeing the Blackpool team let off the leash. The handbrake, as we kept referring to it, the handbrake was snapped, never mind came off. So let's hope we can get the handbrake back on, but only apply it lightly.
Tom, you'd like to think that Steve Bruce has been informed or told that there was a massive problem with the style of football employed under Neil Critchley. Richard Keough's obviously sorted it, a bit questionable at the back, but you'd like to think the backroom staff have informed them of that. And have you got any concerns about the potential style of play of Steve Bruce.
Yeah, I
given
think
his
it's the
track
biggest.
record?
It is the biggest concern with Steve Bruce, isn't it? I think that's what we all turn to when we see he's been appointed. I think Simon Sadler's main aim, regardless of everything else, is to get us back into the Championship, because he doesn't want to be losing money every year, where he's trying to fund a team that's competitive at the right end of the division. What people think about how we've spent over the summer and how much we truly are being backed is another argument. But ultimately, whenever you hear him speak, he says, Championship, let's not talk about the training ground, let's not talk about the stadium, let's get back in the Championship. That's his focus, and that's clearly why he's appointed Steve Bruce. What you obviously have to accept as part of that is the style of play question, because there's managers out there who are a bit more modern in terms of the way they build out from the back. You've got the Neil Critchley mold, obviously, who we initially bought into for that more modern style of play. Obviously, it was rather bizarre how that all turned out last season and the start of this season, but yeah, we could have gone down that road again, where we're looking at someone who's up and coming as a coach, Pete Wild, for example, and trying to play football the right way. But I think he's sacrificed that a little bit and tried to get out of this division at the first time of asking. And what Steve Bruce has got over his career is taking clubs out of one division and into the next. Like we've just touched on there, Hull and Birmingham he took up twice. He did get a relegation at both clubs as well, but that's because he got them into the Premier League in the first place on both occasions, and he got Hull to the cup final as well, didn't he? So he has got a good record of doing good jobs where, in the most part, Sunderland strikes as another one, and Wigan, where he did quite well. Thinking he's had a bit of a bad turn since Aston Villa with the Newcastle and West Brom jobs, but that's chalk and cheese comparing those types of clubs and those expectations compared to us. So, yeah, he's obviously looking for a manager to get us at the right end of the division, to get us into the Championship, hopefully, and to keep us there. And I think Steve Bruce makes sense when you compare it to those objectives.
Brad, over to you now. Would you like to? We're on the theme of style of play. Would you like to tell the viewers and the listeners of what you got up to during one of the boycott seasons?
Yeah, so yeah, when we had the boycott years, obviously I went and started watching Aston Villa play, especially from the 2015 onwards season till obviously Simon Sadler bought the club. So Steve Bruce was very much a part of the Aston Villa team, and I remember very, very well when Villa were playing his boring style of football. Now, I hope I'm completely wrong in my assessment of Steve Bruce. I really do. I hope he takes Blackpool to ultimately the Championship. You know, I really do hope that's the case. But when I'm looking back at when he was at Villa, his style of play and his decision making, which seems very similar to what Critchley used to do last season in particular, it was a massive problem. You know, he wasn't using the players right. He was having tiffs with the team. So he was bringing over his old friends like Robert Snodgrass. He brought him on loan. He had John Terry in defence. And when you think of those sort of players, you think of top quality players who are playing in the Premier League, going into the Championship to do one thing. And I remember going to, unfortunately, the playoff final against Fulham. And it was abysmal. And you could just see the downward trend happen with his style of play. Now, yeah, Tim and Tom quite rightly put it. When he had his Birmingham days and his Hull City days, he did phenomenally well. But for me, when he went to Villa, Newcastle, his style of play was kind of sussed out, really, and that was a big problem. Now, touching on West Brom, my father-in-law is unfortunately a Baggies supporter. Bless him. And he used to tell me every Saturday, he's shocking. We need to sack him. I don't know why we've got him. He won't get us promoted. And there was a lot of Baggy supporters out there that turned around and said, we're just gonna be a middle table championship team at this rate. And it's a shame, you know, because his CV is really, really good. You know, he got, Tom's pointed out, got to a cup final with Hull. But unfortunately, as with anything with a style of play in a managerial role, unless you develop and you adapt, you're going to get sussed out. And I'm scared that this season he brings his dinosaur antics, and I hope that's not the case, but I firmly believe that that is the case. We're going to be finding it to be a very, very hard season.
Tim, when Mick McCarthy was appointed, given the squad we had, I was firmly of the belief that Mick McCarthy would not be employing Mick McCarthy tactics, given the squad and the type of players that we had. Do we think Steve Bruce will be of the same ilk, i.e. extremely stuck in his ways with his set style of play?
Well, we've got to hope not, haven't we? Because that's the last thing that any of us want to see is a defensive and prosaic style of football that that we sort of start to see with Mick McCarthy trying to impose a system they didn't even have the players for. So let's hope not. I mean, I think we can if we take encouragement, it's from the fact that Keough and Dobby seem to be fairly central to the plans, and Steve, in his own words, have said that, having watched the games, I don't think he's going to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, is he? I think he's going to be looking at tightening up the defence, which we need to do. I do think, as I said on the last podcast I was on, I think he's been a bit unlucky, Keough, with some of those results. I think they could quite easily have turned into 4 wins. Because he did have some individual errors. I think if we'd had Grimmy still, I don't think we'd have lost. Drawn the 2 league games. I think we'd have won them both, or at least one of them. So we just need to evolve it, and I think that there's been some problems in defence, and I think we've got a new keeper, we've got some new players who haven't really had a run yet at the back. And it's about getting the right blend. I think in the forward positions, we've shown over the last few games that we're scoring goals, and I don't want to see that compromised. So I think a lot of this is going to turn on how the plan that Dobby and Keough are going to have a significant role works out in practice, or whether they're going to be, to use our old analogy, putting out the cones for Steve and Steve. Hopefully not.
Assisted by Steve. Thanks.
By Steve. By 2 Steves.
Should change the club name to Steve United. There's just a pertinent comment just come in the chat there. One that I've been playing around my head since this news was broken. It's from Michael Manley. Bruce has been given 2 seasons to get us out of League One and given Dobby Unkovic the ability to take us further. The bit at the end there, Bruce spent most of his time in the Championship and the Premier League. Do we think this is a problem, given he's got 0 experience in League One in the 3rd tier?
Yeah,
as a player and a manager.
What it brings to mind is when Mark Hughes went to Bradford, and that did not work. I'm mates with a couple of Bradford fans living away. I do, and they were all very excited when Mark Hughes got unveiled, and he was proven to have no knowledge of the league. It didn't work whatsoever, and he quickly lost the fan base. And he struggled to adapt by all accounts, I believe. Thinking it was quite simple to get out of League Two by playing through the lines quickly, long ball. And he didn't really have a plan B, and he couldn't adapt when people worked it out. So yeah, we'll only find out one way, won't we? Which we're all going to find out by watching this season. So yeah, I mean, he's been in the Football League. It's not like he's been at the upper echelons of the Premier League recently. He's had 2 years out of the game. You don't know what he's been up to during that time. So he's probably been watching clubs up and down the country. He was at Sheff Wednesday not too long ago and had a season towards the bottom end of the Championship, and I don't think we were competing a million miles away from that. So I'm not massively concerned by it. But as Blackpool in League One, you're either going to be taking someone on the way down who's been at the top of the game, or you're going to be taking someone on the way up where they're not quite ready for the Championship. So look, we've all got our opinions on what we would have done if we were in the hot seat, whether you give it to Keough, whether you go for someone at another club like Richard Wellens, or whether you get someone who's of Steve Bruce's mould. So I think the difference with Mick McCarthy is Mick McCarthy was challenged with getting us results quickly, getting us up that table and saving us from relegation, whereas with Bruce, I can't see him. I really can't see him playing defence-minded with caution and protecting what we've got, because we haven't got very much to show at the moment. We're towards the bottom end of League One, albeit an early stage in the season, and he's been challenged with getting us in the playoffs, according to his interview in TalkSport. So he's surely got to be expecting to score more goals than we're conceding, playing on the front foot, particularly at home, tweaking it rather than wholesale changes based on how we've played, whether that's 3 at the back, 5 at the back, 4 at the back, whatever it might be. And then come to January, hopefully we're in the picture and he can add 1 or 2 additions, and we can go up the table. And just one touch on the style of play point, I think it's always going to split the fan base, because I've not got a season ticket, and I watch probably 7 or 8 games at home a season, similar amount away, and then a similar amount online. So my opinion is results and get up in the Championship more so than people with a season ticket who might be watching us against Shrewsbury at home in a 1-0 win. Maybe won't be quite what makes them happy on a Saturday, whereas I'd probably take it. So I'm less bothered about the style of play than a lot of fans, but I'm just hoping it's that nice blend where we're defensively sound and we score a lot of goals, which Bruce has done at a couple of clubs as well. So fingers crossed it's on that side of it.
We have got a panellist who is very interested in the style of play. Couldn't be with us this evening because he was busy wrecking a few databases with some SQL updates. So let's hear from Mitch from his Gary Medine captivity cellar.
Steve Bruce, what is this about? My reaction has gone from a complete shock in thinking it's a hoax, that it was one of the usual likely suspects knocking together a bit of Photoshop, through to just bafflement. I've gone through all the stages, denial and all of that, grief, anger, grief because I actually really like what Keough was doing. I think if you were to say what were my favourite 4 back-to-back games since we came back from the boycott, it would be this 4. That doesn't mean it's the best 4 performances we've had or the best period we've played, but in terms of just 4 games coming in one after the other, where we've played like I want a Blackpool side to play, where we've played fearless, brave, sometimes stupid, but sometimes brilliant football, and you've been on the edge of your seat, and you've gone away thinking there was more good than bad, then I think this was probably my favourite little period of the last 5 or so years in that respect. So there was a bit of grief, and then the anger because it's not personal for Steve Bruce, but it's Steve Bruce. I thought we were a football team. I thought we were doing something, trying to do something. I kind of admired what Critchley was trying to do, even though he didn't execute it. I thought there was, he was trying to do something with some ethos. And obviously Keough's come in and kind of ripped some of the stuff up, but you can see that there's also some of the stuff that they've worked on, the movement and the passing has been very, very good, and that doesn't just happen. That's obviously, there has been some decent coaching and principles going on, but that's been shackled, if you like, by the overall tactics, and Keough's come in and changed the shape and changed a bit of the philosophy, but those principles have actually stood us in quite good stead in an attacking sense anyway. So whilst I knew that maybe Keough wouldn't get the job, and I really wanted to see what he could do, and I really like the bloke, and I like having a sort of an honest and likeable fella who seems to be absolutely in the moment with us. Whilst I realised that might not have happened, I was expecting us to appoint, or was hoping, should I say, we were going to appoint somebody that would be an evolution, a continuity of what we got before, because that's kind of how you get success, isn't it? You buy a squad, and sometimes the managers change, but you buy somebody in that you think is going to build on what went before. And what went before last season wasn't an abject disaster. It wasn't great, and the start of the season was really poor, but there were some things there that were worth building on. And I think Keough showed that you could build on what we had. So why on earth have we brought us in a 62, 63-year-old with a long-standing reputation for sort of direct and rugged football when that's not what we've been trying to be? And it's really odd because you kind of go, okay, we've got this set up at the club and we've got people in senior roles, and that the idea of that is that the manager isn't the be all and end all and there's a direction to the club. But we've just taken this sudden U-turn, and that's not me having a go at Steve Bruce, who, you know, always comes across as a personable enough bloke, but never in my wildest dreams did I think we were going there, because, you know, we went there with dear old mate, God bless him. And it was just such a bizarre U-turn that went disastrously wrong, because we'd set up to do one thing, changed our mind, and started to do another thing, and are we there again? I don't know. And then you start thinking about, is it a job for a mate? And you start getting suspicious, and you start thinking about, what does this mean for the sort of the club, and the potential is, you know, the potential for sale of the club, and is there a consortium in the background and all of that. And then you kind of go, oh, this is Blackpool. It never makes any sense at all, does it? It's never plain sailing. I mean, I should have known when he enjoyed 4 games in a row that wasn't going to last, and that it was going to turn on its head. And, you know, who knows? Maybe it is a stroke of genius. Maybe this squad just needs that wise head around them. Maybe we just need that wise head. Maybe we just need somebody. Maybe Keough and Dobby are going to be there on the training ground and working on the tactics, and maybe they're going to be sort of the brains in the background, and Steve Bruce is just going to have a few pints and dispense some wisdom, and, you know, deal with Chizzy and whatever other press we have to deal with, and just take that because Dobby and Keough don't need that, and Agnew's just sort of there around for, you know, to help them out, and actually he's just this figurehead. I don't know. It seems a very, very expensive way to put young coaches through the paces, to be honest. But if that is the case, then fair play. You know, if they have, as I've calmed down, if Sadler has actually thought, look, let's just chuck some money at getting that experience in there and build what we've got, then fair play to him. If there's something else, then there's something else. But if that's it, then it could be a masterstroke, because Bruce might be on a sort of a twinkly-eyed career sunset where he's going to enjoy football, and he's just going to let other people kind of, you know, get it going. He's just going to tweak things here and there, and, you know, nip off when the game kicks off down to the Armfield and have a couple of pints and come back and see how it's gone at the end. Who knows? But what a club. Hey, it's always like this, isn't it? We should know better than to expect anything but the unexpected. Right, up the pool.
I feel like I've been watching a Bond film. I'm just missing the white cat there.
I think
He
the
did a very good
lighting
impression,
setup,
didn't he?
I think the lighting setup reflected his mood perfectly.
He probably did.
Or just covering how pale he was when he found out about the news.
Sent him whiter than snow on the ground when it's snowing. Is this a stroke of genius from Sadler, or a panicked move a la the Mick McCarthy appointment? Very strange, changing managers 2 games into the season. Reactive.
Yeah, it's when you look at his track record of appointing managers, we're losing that thread of what he's trying to do, aren't we, really? He's gone for Simon Grayson first, which kind of feels like where we are now. He's trying to get promotion, someone who's been there and done it. Then he's gone for a young coach at the start of COVID with Critchley and trying to do things the right way. That's worked for a bit. Then he's got Michael Appleton and tried to carry that on a little bit. Then he's totally panicked and gone for McCarthy. And then he's gone back to Critchley, and now here we are back at Bruce. So feels like we're back to where we started in League One, with a potential dinosaur manager and a strange style of play that we need the right players to do. If you remember when we had Grayson, it was a massive upheaval of players. We seemed to be buying and selling players for about 3 windows and having a very unsettled squad. So I'm very interested to see how the likes of, I can't think of too many at the moment, but like CJ Hamilton and players like that who've done well under Critchley, how are they going to fit in? Like our squad, we might start seeing players coming from nowhere now who've not really done it for us, and players that we've had for the last 2 or 3 years doing really well. Jordan Gabriel, someone like that, might be out in January. We're probably just going to take a different turn now in that window to that consistency we're probably expecting under Critchley. So, yeah, I don't know what point I'm trying to make there, but it's very different to where we were, and there's going to be a lot of changes probably come January and next summer now as we look to start again effectively with a new manager.
Obviously, he's got the transfer window closes very, very shortly. He's going to have no chance to put his own stamp on it regarding the playing staff. He's going to have to just play the cards he's been dealt. Tim, so how's this going to end? Particularly this first half of the season.
Well, I think it comes back to the point I made further. I think if he's going to blend what we've got and just bring that experience in relation to the defensive side, then I think I can see it working. I can see. I think the biggest positive in all this is Keough's already shown that we've got a squad who can play attacking football and score goals, which we weren't doing under the old system. So to a certain degree, that system, we talk about evolving it, but it needed a bit of a shake-up because it was stale, it was boring, and it wasn't producing results either. So, from my perspective, I am quite looking forward to seeing what he does. Listen, he's been there and bought the T-shirt, and without wishing to repeat the point, I don't think we automatically assume it's going to be McCarthy Part 2, because I don't think it will be. I think he's got a little bit more about him that Mick McCarthy really disappointed me, because I think he was quite lazy, and I think he just relied on what the people thought about certain players rather than actually having a look at them himself. And I think Bruce has got more about that. The other thing I've found an interesting dynamic over the last 48 hours with him is his profile's huge. I've had people messaging me from all over saying, what do you think, etc. I think we've been on Talk Sport 2 days on the trot. We've had comedians not doing very unfunny sketches about Bruce, but nevertheless they're doing them, and they're appearing on Twitter and all other forms of social media. I don't
like all them, Tim, to be honest. I think it's quite sort of personal going against Steve Bruce. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't. The content was crap. The content was crap as well. But what I mean is, what we're seeing is that he's clearly very high profile. He knows a lot of people in the game. I think what we will hopefully find as he beds in and as we get to the January transfer window is that hopefully he's going to be able to bring in the players that we might need if we can reverse this current trend. Obviously, at the moment we're in the bottom four. If he gets us pushing towards mid-table, upper table, bring some players in January, it could be a very exciting season. So, and he's a big name. He's a massive name, both as a player and as a manager. He knows everybody. So let's hope that he can use that to our advantage. We thought Critchley would do that with his Liverpool connections and never did really. And I think he will. But I just hope he's going to let Keough and Dobby have a very, very active role and not a passive one.
Quick question to the group. If it was a different club, say gone to Barnsley, Steve Bruce has been appointed manager of Barnsley, how will we perceive that from the outside looking in? Would it be, oh, they'll be up there this year, or would it be, God help them, they're in for a tough season? Because personally, I think I'd be thinking they'll be up there this year, challenging. But I don't know what others think.
I think I would as well.
Yeah,
Go on, Brad.
I'm on the fence. I'm going on personal experiences. Obviously, what Steve Bruce is like, and vice versa. He's obviously looked at what position that we're in at the moment and what Critch has done, and obviously what Keough's done is absolutely phenomenal. Personally, for me, I think Keough should have had the job with Dobby. 1 and 2 situation where keep the good run going and have the fans buy them. Because if you've got the 12th man behind the team, we're going to do really, really well. But he's obviously looked at the league, because at the moment, Stockport are on a high run. You've got Wrexham this season with all their, celebrity connections, and they're on a momentum at the moment, and there's nothing stopping them at the moment. You've got Birmingham that's spending millions on a Fulham player, and you also think about all the Premier League teams are actually in League One. This league is very, very competitive. So Steve must have thought of that, thinking, I've got championship knowledge. I can go against the other managers that, that have had championship experience as well and go at it. I'm trying to think of positive thinking as to why Simon has recruited Steve in this scenario. But a big question for me is, he spent a couple of years out of the game. Positively thinking, I'm hoping that he's looked at other teams, looked how the style of play, and he's changed his rule book on how he wants to play the game, but also as well reignite his career, because he's been out for so long.
I'm thinking Ian Holloway, 2009 there. Do you reckon Steve Bruce has been watching Barcelona train for the last 12 months and getting ready to throw his chickens out there and have a new formation?
Holloway was a lot younger though than Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce, let's make no bones about it. He's in the twilight of his career. Is he drinking at the last chance saloon in terms of getting a job as a manager? It's old for a manager in football now. 63. Is he the kind of player, stroke manager, that will change with the times, be a bit more dynamic? Who knows? One other thing that concerns me about the Steve Bruce appointment, for me, it's a gamble. I think it's a much bigger gamble than appointing Richard Keough. No one would have been aghast at the appointment of Keough. It had been essentially a free hit for Sadler. But I think if it goes wrong under Steve Bruce within 10 games, the crowd may turn a lot quicker than they would under Richard Keough.
I disagree with that. I think it's a bigger gamble appointing Keough, because Keough's only been coaching since the summer. He's had 2 games watching Critchley and watching pre-season, and then he's done 3 as a manager, been thrown in there without his badges. He's got no track record whatsoever, and the objective this year is to finish as high as we can and minimum top 6. And if it actually goes wrong with Bruce in 10 games, we've got a chance to bring in Keough and Dobby at that point, and the season's gone, and we do it then. So I hear what you're saying, but I think from Sadler's perspective and what we're trying to do this year, we don't want the season to end before it's even started. We're still quite early on. I think it would have been a bigger gamble to go with Keough, who's unknown. Albeit, yeah, we've all enjoyed the ride, but he's drawn 4-4 at Cambridge and drawn 2-0 with Wycombe and got through Crewe in the Cup. So while it's been entertaining, there's nothing really there to suggest he's the next Guardiola. So let's just let him learn from someone who's been around the block a few times. Dobby's probably more qualified. Let him learn as well. And we've got a manager who's at least, the one thing you've got to say Steve Bruce has got his experience.
I just want to allude to what you've just said, Tom. Like, is Simon trying to be an absolute genius at the moment? Because he understands that, yeah, Critch had some amount of experience, but does he want a lot more experience to be able to pass down to Keough and Dobby? Because he knows the fans love that duo in its own right, and they've always been great servants to us. But you alluded to Keough having 3 managerial matches and not having any badges, but he also played for the club shirt as well. So, he must have the dressing rooms backing, otherwise he wouldn't be able to do what he wants to do to get the results that he's got. Now, we have been very unfortunate the last couple of games. There's no denying that. We should have won the last one, as far as I'm concerned, but it was just unfortunate that it didn't go in the back of the net. But I am very, very worried that Simon has done this as a smokescreen, because we've had a lot of negativity about Critchley over the last 18 months with his horrendous style of play. My personal opinion, he should never have came back, and I'll keep saying that. I didn't like it the way he left. The Villa fans turned around and said, "Who's this guy?" And I tried to speak to my friends who are Villa fans and trying to allude to him, no, Critchy's a good bloke. He got us promoted, for the pool, and that didn't turn out well, and he did poorly at QPR. You're coming back to Steve. Yeah, I sincerely hope that his experience can get us where we need to be. He's got no players to sign for because he hasn't got the transfer window. So he's only got the squad of players that we've got. Time will tell for the new keeper. I was always a massive Grummy fan. CJ Hamilton's starting to play really well. Hopefully that long may continue. But the biggest thing that I'm really scared of is if Rhodes gets injured again. Because he scored an absolute belter the other night. And if we lose him, where are we going to get our goals from?
Ashley Fletcher, Brad. Ashley Fletcher.
I'm not really clued up with Ashley Fletcher, to be fair. He scored a few, I know, but I like Rhodes, and I'm only going off how I feel at the moment. And the way it's going, Fletcher's out for 3 games, remember. So if he's out for 3 games, that's 3 matches and 9 vital points that we need. So we're going to rely on Rhodes, aren't we?
We are. Right, let's move on.
Have you seen why Fletcher got the 3-match ban? Jesus, he threw a right hook, didn't he, at the Wycombe player just as we scored.
He's been unlucky there, because if that's any time on the pitch, if it was a corner that went out for a goal kick, he wouldn't have got banned. It's because it was in the highlights and people have seen it, and it's literally during when we scored the first goal, and you can see him giving him one in the ribs during the game. So he's not been unlucky because he deserves a 3-match ban.
Happened to Medine that as well, didn't it? In a similar situation. But yeah, but I think Bradley's right. I think we need to get Rhodes playing. Rhodes is a proven goal scorer. But I don't think we're a one-trick pony there at the moment. We've shown with Ballard and with the other guys who are
Bees chipping in.
Bees is chipping in. CJ Hamilton's chipping in with a header. So
Joseph scored twice.
So pleased.
Yeah.
So there are a few goals coming from around the team, aren't there? Which is pleasing, because the part of the problem last season was when Rhodes got injured or when Rhodes stopped scoring, we had a big problem. So we do look a little bit more like we've got a few more options up there, which is useful.
And don't forget,
you see this?
Jimmy Husband will fire us to promotion. He's on the goal trail, Jimmy, as well. Don't forget that. Okay, we've got 2 more panelists just to catch up on. It'd be very interesting to hear what the Grice Reaper has to say. I've not actually listened to him yet, so let's roll the VT of Andy's thoughts on the appointment of Steve Bruce.
Well, I sit here outside the stadium, and what can I say about the last few days? Right, after a fine victory against Crewe, we had the WTF moment of Steve Bruce being announced. Meltdown ensued, but I think we've all taken stock of the situation since. Well, I'm genuinely gutted that Keough didn't get the job, because I thought he completely galvanised the fan base virtually in 4 games or 3 games even. He's done everything we could expect of him, bar a couple of individual errors that have been badly punished, and I genuinely think some of that is bad luck on our behalf. But we've taken massive steps in the right direction. And I really hope that that's revisited at some stage in the future, as has been indicated by Bruce and Agnew coming in with Keough and Dobby at their side as coaches. And I just think it is what it is now. Let's get behind it. Let's try our utmost to get behind the lads. Let's hope that Steve Bruce plays the football that we want to see, not the football he's played in other areas of the country, shall we say. And just let's hope it's a successful season in the end for the mighty Pool. Come on, up the Pool!
Andy seemed a bit, what's the word?
Flat.
Yeah.
He was flat about it. I think that's probably the reaction of all Blackpool fans at the moment. We've not had the massive wow. Oh, look what we got. We got them. We got this manager. You know.
He looks like, to me, there, he was hiding his true feelings. I don't
What,
think he's
secretly
a happy
absolutely ecstatic? You doing very well to hold it into him.
There's a knobber at
Sorry?
work today. What was that? Go on. I was just
So I
saying
thought
there's a
Tom
knob.
said something was on.
Oh, that's right. I was saying there was a knobber at work today, and he seemed genuine, and he thought Steve Bruce would do very well for us. I thought he was going to come over and start taking the piss. But he was like, "Oh no, you'll do all right with him." So, yeah. Right. One more panelist. Go on.
That's weird.
I think at the end of the day, we are going to compete, and Andy's disappointed because I think he did. He wasn't going to get his season ticket. He's enjoyed as Mitch, very very similar attitude to Mitch. I think from speaking to him, enjoyed the last few games incredibly, and I think we're just not sure. We're not sure how it's going to pan out, and probably that's quite positive for Andy. I thought actually, I was expecting. The full on Grim Reaper bit, but no, I think I think a lot of us, the jury's out, and hopefully, he's going to come back with a positive verdict.
As Mitch says there, the Reaper's blade seemed blunt. Now going under the blade was our final panelist, Matt Smith. Matt's been in hospital for a semi-serious operation. He's come through the other side, so get well soon, Matt. He has quickly got off the operating theatre table, rushed into the recovery room, and recorded this video. So let's hear the thoughts from Blackpool Vic and Matt.
Hi everybody, Matt Smith here, just to give you my 2 pence on the appointment of Steve Bruce. Talking of appointments, I've been in the good hands of the NHS today, having 2 stents fitted, so I'll be fit for Exeter hopefully. The worst thing about this is that I've got these on my wrist now, which make me look like some sort of fat James McLean, which I'm not happy with, but hopefully they'll be gone in the next couple of days. So Steve Bruce, initially I was probably like most, dare I say, that were a little concerned that he was in the sort of Mick McCarthy sort of ilk of being a little bit past it, dare I say it. I think he's 63. He's been out of the game for a couple of years. So whereas we've obviously had a little bit of a resurgence to get good attacking play under Keough, despite the results not quite being good enough to get 3 points in both occasions. I was hoping that we were going to continue with an upward sort of trajectory with Keough and maybe brave enough to appoint him. But now the sort of dust has settled, I sort of get it in a way. Maybe Bruce is going to be coming in as more of a sort of a figurehead. He'll take the stick and everything else that's going to be thrown at him inevitably if results don't go his way. And Keough or Dobby will hopefully have some influence on how the club, from the playing perspective anyway, is run. There's still very much a random approach as to how we're appointing managers, and obviously we know the connections with David Downs, etc. But looking past that, I've sort of settled down a little bit. We've just got to accept what it is now. He'll get my backing, of course, like every manager does, but I will have some sort of reserves in the background about how he got the job and his credentials in the most recent times that he's been a manager. So time will tell. Ultimately, time will tell. So he gets my backing. we'll go forward, and I'll leave it at that, really. So remember, kids, wash your hands, save the NHS, up the pool.
Yeah, looks like Matt's well on way to recovery. So, yeah, thanks for your thoughts there, Matt. Yeah, it is what it is. And I think we've just all got to all get behind it and see what happens, I guess, which leads on just to our final discussion point of the evening before we head off. Round the room then, Brad, starting with you. How do you think we'll do under Steve Bruce? Where do you think we'll finish in the league?
My heart's telling me we're going to get the top 6. My head's telling me I'll be very lucky if we got mid-table. I'm not feeling confident. I'm really not. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope all the patrons start giving me a load of nonsense in the chat to say how wrong I'm going to be. But I'm positively hoping that he is just there to look after Keough and Dobby so that they can progress in their careers and so that they're actually the spearhead in terms of this, because we've got a long season ahead of us and it's going to be a tough season, and I think it's really, really important that, yeah, I'll back Brucey no matter what, even though my Blue Nose friends are laughing all the way home. It's an unfortunate situation that I'm currently in, being in the Black Country. But I will need time for it to settle. I've had it settle a little bit for me, but I think the next couple of games is going to be crucial to get the fans on side. I think that is the biggest thing. He needs to have the fans on side, and if he does manage that and gets the results ultimately and gets the goals and gets the wins, because at the moment we've got 2 points and the top of the leaders have got 10. So he's already got a mountain to climb already, and we're already starting in September. So hopefully before Christmas we'll be in a lot better position, and we'll start getting a bit giddy about it and think, do you know what? Can we do the final push? And we'll see how we are playing with the bigger teams, because naturally we do play better than the bigger teams. It's the lower end teams that we tend to struggle with. So I'm going to remain hopeful, regardless of what I've just said for the last hour, and hopefully we'll get 3 points.
Tim, over to you. Obviously, we haven't got a game this weekend. As Brad said, we're languishing wrong end of the table. We've got Exeter at home. The next game. No, it's a bit silly saying it's a must-win game, but it's a game we have to be looking to be winning. Get the positivity back at Bloomfield Road, or continuing at Bloomfield Road. And where do you think we're going to finish on Steve Bruce?
Yeah, and I think just to endorse, I think it's important that he gets a good start. Momentum's everything, isn't it? And if he builds on what Keough's done and converts that to a win, and then starts, we start creeping up that table, he's going to have everybody behind him. So that we need to build that momentum. I actually think he's going to do all right. It is a tough one, as Brad said, because we've got it's almost like we had a points deduction before the season started, isn't it? Like a couple of teams have had in the past. So we're fighting against that, and we've got teams who at the top we've already got that momentum, and it's going to take some dislodging to stop them winning games. So, but I think we might sneak into the playoffs. That's where I'm going to go.
Tom,
don't think promotions on. Don't think automatics on. I think that'd be a bit too much. Bear in mind what we've got, but I think we can get 5th or 6th.
I personally can't see that, Tim. I'm more on Brad's wavelength. I'm mid-table at best. I think the squad's got a lot of holes in it. Too much reliance on loan players again. I think I said 18th at the beginning of the season, revised it to 12th when we made some signings, so I'm going to stick with that. Go with just a mid-table finish. Tom, your final thoughts before we sign off the evening?
Well, it's been a tough start to the season, but we're only 4 games in, so we've got 42 to play. The other positive is 4 of the next 5 are at home. So if we're talking about momentum, he's got a pretty good start there, hasn't he? He's got a week off to get to know the players, and 4 of his first 5 are at home. I know we're talking about a man who's had 12 different clubs, but we're actually going to play 3 of his former clubs in the next month. So we've got Sheffield Wednesday in the Cup, so they'll be baying for blood. We've got Huddersfield next when it obviously gets rearranged, and then we've got Wigan in October as well. So they'll have an extra bit of spice to them with Bruce at the on the touchline. I'm confident that he'll get an immediate start. He'll get everyone rallying around the same thing. I think what we've had with previous appointments is a split fan base before we even start, because it's someone coming back, an ex-Nobber or Critchley, who we all, we're on the fence with. So at least we've got a fresh, clean break where we've not got any pre expectations or anything that are negative too much. So at least we're all on the same page. And if he gets a couple of wins early on, then we'll all be right behind him, won't we? So that's what we need. In terms of where we're going to finish this year, I'd probably say we will just miss out on the playoffs, just based on what we did last season. Let's see where we are in a month, and maybe we can reassess. Is just climbing that table, hang on where we can, and then in January maybe we can add that extra bit of quality to cement ourselves in the top 6. So I'm going to go with a 7th place finish.
Okay, gents, I think we'll leave it there. Great show as always. Lots of different viewpoints, some positive, some negative. But I think the proof will be in the pudding, won't it, at Bloomfield? It's going to be very interesting next game, nonetheless. So yeah, thanks for input. Thanks for the other panel for sending the vids through. Thanks to everyone on the chat for your input this evening. Do like and subscribe to the video if you're on YouTube. I think we're nearly on 1,800, so smash that like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, and yeah, we'll see you on the next pod. Up the pool.
Up the pool. Come on, Brucey.
Come on, Brucey.
Been involved in 2. Can he make 3? Not on this occasion. Well taken by Walsh. Davis is on the far side. Ainsko coming square. That's the ball. That's a good try.